Hello, you're listening to Better Financial Futures. I'm your host, John Boatman. After 3 decades, 30 years in financial services, I've just seen how small, informed decisions can transform someone's life financially. This podcast is my way of sharing that experience so that one listener can take a step to a stronger financial future. Most of us are taught to get a job, work hard, and hope it works out. We're never taught about money. We're not taught how it can work for us. Financial services, financial advice is heavily regulated, and this podcast is not about giving financial advice. This is about giving awareness, giving education. So over the coming weeks, we'll be talking to different people and I'll be sharing different experiences about financial education. I'd love to welcome a good friend of mine, Gemma Hunt, to our podcast. Gemma and I have known each other for many, many years. She's a friend of my wife, Emma, and known Emma since she was a child. Gemma has 22 years experience in TV. She's a presenter, children's TV, but has done many, many different things within the media world. Gemma, thank you for coming on the podcast. Welcome. Tell us a little bit more about your career and tell us a bit more about you.
Well, like you said, I've known your wife, Emma, since I was born. So that's over 40 years. And I've known you, John, for, how long now? Probably
17 years, maybe 15.
Yeah,
15 years,
maybe
I think.
18 years. Yeah, okay. Yeah, so a long, long time. And my parents were friends with your wife's parents. So that's how we got to be really close. And I've just had the most incredible support from Emma, from my family, and from lots of other friends with my 22 long career, like you said, in 22 years, which when I think about it, I feel like I'm still a baby because I don't feel like I'm old enough to have had a career in telly for 22 years. But I went to university, I studied media performance, and that's where I then met an agent. But prior to that, I was doing lots of acting things on homemade radio stations and things. And it was the agent that saw the potential in me and put me forward for a job at CBBC. So I started working there on Independence Day, 2003. And I've been working on and off really for the BBC for the last 22 years and establishing mostly my career in kids TV, like you said, where I've been working across CBBC and then more recently CBeebies on the pirate-themed game show Swashbuckle. Ahoy there, my hearties. So that's where I've been most known for recently, but then also working on things like Songs of Praise. I've worked on Channel 5. And I'm now an author. I've written 2 children's books. I've co-authored other books with other authors, and I'm loving it. It's a real new adventure for me. And this is now a new season that I'm stepping into with different things that I'm trying out with the likes of you, John. So thank you for having me here on your very first podcast.
Oh, that's great. I mean, you've got the presentation skills that I need. So thank you for supporting the podcast. Obviously, we're talking about financial education. So what was your financial education like? What do you remember learning about at school, for example?
I just remember learning about coins and the value of coins and rubbing over the 10 pence, the 2p, the 5p, looking at the different sizes. And how I was really confused that a 2p was bigger than a 5p, but why was 2p worth more than a 5p? And that was probably my first education in terms of money. I remember having a little bank book that I had that my parents set up for me, a little bank account where I would take in my little paying book. And whenever I got pocket money or birthday money, Christmas money, I'd go and take it in. And then it would just accumulate. It was never much though. And then every now and again, if I fancy buying myself a book or a game or something, or I would go and take out the money, then go and buy it. But I don't really remember being taught specifically how to look after my finances. That's not even a word that I think I knew until I went to university when I had to start looking after myself and paying for my own bills and things. So I think it was pretty poor. My parents separated when I was very young, and so they both had very different experiences of money. I just remember as well being a kid and my dad having to pay maintenance. I didn't really know what that meant, but I just knew that he then came around every week to see me and gave my mum some cash, which I'm assuming then paid for stuff for me. And then my dad would always buy my school uniform, and mum, who I spent most of my time with, would then foot the rest of the bills when I was living with her. Um, but I don't really know I had any major education. It was more just by watching my parents. And my mum was one of these people who, I don't know whether she's still the same, but I don't feel like she trusted the banks, because there were bottles, jars, pots of coins all around our house. Mum would collect 20p's, and then when they came out, £2 coins, and there would be like hot chocolate empty bottles with the screw lid that she'd fill up full of £2 coins, or there'd be jam jar full of 20p's. And I think that when I come to clear out her house when she goes many, many years to come, I'm going to find these jars everywhere. So that was always how I thought you had to just save money, just by accumulating it and watching it just get bigger and bigger. And then sometimes I would find these big bottles and I'd just count them out. So even now I love counting coins, and I just love spreading them all out and piling them up into tens and into 20s and just counting them all out. So that's probably all I ever had, was hands-on cash that I had displayed to me. And then my little paying in book going into the bank or the building society.
Yeah, it's a reminded me of a post office book in my case, and you'd go into the post office and it would be kind of reprinted for you with the updated balance and interest. And actually, just talking about coins, yeah, I remember I've still got this big whiskey bottle. I wasn't into whiskey, but it would just fill up with 2p's, 1p's. Maybe eventually I'd go in and put some 20p's in there. I mean, nowadays you can go into a supermarket and it will count the money, but just staying on coins and actual physical money, and being a mother now as well, we don't see money as much, do we? And your own daughter, I would imagine, doesn't see physical money or coins the same way as you described. How do you find that has changed so much so quickly, really?
Yeah, she doesn't see money that frequently at all, apart from birthdays and Christmas, where she might get a five or a tenner slipped in a card or something. And to her, it doesn't mean anything. And it really shocked me the other day. She'd asked me to buy something for her on Vinted. And so I thought, right, I've got a Vinted account. I'll try and barter it down, get some money off for you. Got her a tenner off. And I said, right, you owe me this amount of money. And she went to her little purse, and it was one of those like old-fashioned clip purses, which it was really sweet that she had that. And then all of these paper notes just flew out. But why have you got all these? You have a bank account. We've got a Rooster account for her that's attached to our NatWest account. So it's like one of those Go Henry cards that kids can kind of use their own cards in shops and things. So why have you just got this sat in your purse? We could have put this in your account back in November when it was your birthday. But all these notes just pinged out, and then she just passed it over to me. It's right, okay, then when I'm going to get my teddy soon. Like, yes, great. So it's funny that she then associated having to spend money with this cash that she had. So that was good. But in terms of coins and things, we went to the pet shop the other day to go and get some rabbit food for her bunnies, and she didn't really know what to hand over, because she's so used to seeing me just getting my phone and just like, oh, contactless, paying for something.
Tapping a device.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think this is an interesting element of money to me, in regard to probably since the pandemic. Actually, there's been more emphasis on cashless society, and then I think there was after the pandemic there was again a peak where cash did come back in, because people found it easy to budget, so they could see the money. Maybe your daughter doesn't want to spend the money, so she's just storing it away in a purse. So I think for me, it's like a habit. And I don't know whether that's the responsibility of the parents, the school, because we're not really teaching money in schools. The national curriculum is going to include financial education, I think, from September 27. But whose responsibility is it to teach not just the adults and the children, but, just teaching people about money and having those good habits that you've just talked about?
I think us as parents also need to take responsibility. But unless we've had that education, we don't know what we don't know. So how can we tell our kids what to do with their money if we aren't particularly good with ours? So I think it is something that we all need to be educated about. And every day is a school day. Doesn't matter whether you're physically in education or whether you are later in life, we can all still learn better ways to manage our finances.
Yeah. Just going back from a business point of view, you're obviously been in media for over 20 years, as we said. And I imagine, working professionally, you've had to pay taxes and you've got a mortgage, I believe. How did you find that adjusting to working life from university, going into kind of professional careers? And were you getting good advice on taxes and then obviously debt and things like that? If you mind me asking?
No, of course. I really struggled. And I think that's because I wasn't really educated on how best to manage my finances. I got a student loan when I was at university, and I got like the highest bracket as well because of the financial status of my family. And so I had, I think, £4,000 every year for those 3 years that I was at university. So I'm like, there's 12 grand there that I've just spent. And I was wow, university with a car that has 4 grand, well, a grand every term. Like, this is amazing. And I went shopping. Emma and I went on a little day trip to Belfast. We had the best time, but I didn't know how to invest it. I didn't. Whereas one of my classmates, she put all of her money into an ISA or something similar and never touched it. So when she came out of university, she's got all this interest on it. She could pay the student loan straight off and then she was fine. Whereas me, I came out of uni with 12 grand debt. And then many years later, met my husband, and I'd been working in that time, but I hadn't paid off very much. And when we actually got married, we were discussing this last night. I remember breaking down and saying, I am so sorry that I'm bringing, it was then like over 13 grand worth of debt into this marriage. And I think had I been better educated, even in my early years working in television, I would have set more aside or paid off more of my student loan. But I didn't realize that I could. Because for the first couple of years, I was managing my accounts myself and I didn't really know what I was doing. I was just taking a figure out of the air and thinking, I probably do need to pay that off. And I paid it to HMRC. They're probably laughing, thinking, wow, we're getting a loan off this girl. She hasn't got a clue. And then a few years later, I did get an accountant and saw that as a worthy investment to then help me save money. But I felt like I was spending so much money on this accountant and then he wasn't really saving me that much money. So then I sacked off that accountant, tried doing it myself again. And then later, when I'd met my husband and we were discussing our family finances, we decided to then get an accountant to help us as a family and to also help me professionally. And it has definitely now helped us save money. So yes, we do have a mortgage, but I don't understand how that all works still, even in my 40s. And I've had it explained to me. We do have a financial advisor and we've got somebody that's explained it, but I need now for my husband to then reinterpret it for me into a way that I understand without me just zoning out completely.
Yeah, I've been in a room with you where you did zone out about finances because Phil's very very intuitive and actually very interested to understand more. So, and also you've always got your daughter to open her purse and to grab some of those notes. I think one of the things that's happening now is people are going to social media and going to maybe what you would call a financial influencer. We're on social media. I know for your career you're on social media. What's your feeling about social media as a place to get financial guidance?
Unfortunately, I think it probably is a good thing because, like you say, we spend so much time on social media. We're going to be looking to people who are there instantly in our palm to give us the advice that we need. I don't necessarily think that it's the best place to go because I don't know the viability of the people that are actually speaking, whether they've got any training or education, whether they're just winging it themselves or whether they're just using AI or whether it's just opinion that they're sharing. And I don't know whether I fully feel confident then in putting my hard-earned cash into the hands of somebody that I don't know and don't know what their background is. So I think that it's still good to have somebody like yourself, a financial advisor, someone who really truly knows it, has trained in it and knows the industry inside and out. But then unless somebody like yourself is going to become an influencer on social media, how am I going to find you? How am I going to get that information? But I think because people are constantly just scrolling and looking for that quick fix, it's like, I don't want to know all the details. And that's me. Don't want to know all the details. Just tell me what I have to do. And that is the case, isn't it? And that's why I think influencers have got that power.
Yeah, I think regulation forms part of that, and trust, obviously, as well. I've built up a trust over 30 years in financial services, but I think sometimes there's this perception that having a financial advisor is only for wealthy people, and to me that's incorrect. My final question really on this subject is money itself. The taboo of talking about money. The Brits, especially, don't particularly like speaking about money, and it does some good things. Money can do many, many good things. I know you've worked in the charity sector. You've recommended charities to us, actually. So yeah, what's your feeling on the subject of money?
Why is it so awkward? I mean, this is why I have an agent, because she does all the talking for me, the negotiating with the contracts and money on my behalf when it comes to work, because it does feel really awkward. I think it's because we fear judgment of other people, because we feel like more is better, or we feel like those that are investing is better, or those who budget are better. So there's an inferiority that I think that we feel when we potentially do discuss money. I think that with family, sometimes there's the expectation of stewarding your money well, and then feeling like your parents aren't proud of you if you haven't dealt with your money well. And then with friends, there's often a pride thing in that we want to display this successful lifestyle that we have and that we're living and that we're enjoying, and that we're portraying something that possibly isn't true. And so therefore, to be honest makes us vulnerable. But I think that when you've got the right people, you can be truly authentic. And there is something so beautiful about being truly authentic with people about everything, but especially when it comes to money. And sometimes we don't reach out when we're struggling. And because, again, out of pride or because of embarrassment. And embarrassment is a temporary feeling. So actually allow yourself to be embarrassed temporarily, and then take the money if you need it, put it towards what it is you need to spend it on, and then when you can, pay it back. And there are definitely ways that we can have conversations with friends about money that doesn't have to be awkward. And even if you just have to sort of caveat by saying, okay, for the next 10 minutes, we're going to talk about money. This is not going to affect the rest of our day or how we see each other. But I just actually, John, as your friend, I need some financial advice. And I know that we have reached out to you in that way before. I know that Phil loves talking to you about investments and blah, blah, and all that stuff that I don't get. So, and I think that is helpful. But then I guess you just have to choose wisely who you talk to. And if it's going to bring up in you feelings of insecurity or inadequacy or unworthiness, then maybe choose different people to talk to. But I think it is wise to have these conversations, because otherwise we're just going to find ourselves struggling when there are people out there to hand us a life raft, and we shouldn't be so proud that we can't ask for help.
That's a great response. That really is. And you don't have to run a marathon for a charity to talk about money, do you? Because, we do get asked for money from our friends when they are maybe raising money for a charity. But other than that, having conversations about money and, the ability to maybe go on holiday or change a car or how you buy a car, finance, stuff like that it's really, really important. And obviously that's one of the reasons we've decided to start this podcast, to give something back, to give more awareness of options, because people need more options and more trusted guidance on that. Thank you very much.
Oh, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for having such a big heart to help others. And I think that people will be wise to listen to you and what you have to say.
I hope you don't mind me asking this, but is there anything particular that would be classed as a big financial mistake that you've made in your life?
Oh, I mean, you probably just got to look at my wardrobe from the noughties and see lots of things that I spent money on that I really shouldn't have done, but they're all coming back into fashion now. I think it was probably panic buying a car. My beloved Mini, you'll remember I've always loved my little black Minis, and my very first Mini, which is the first car that I bought for myself with my earnings through working at CBBC, and I loved it. It's my pride and joy. But when Phil and I then got together, it died. And then we thought, okay, we need to get a more sensible family car because we were hoping to start a family. And rather than just taking time and looking around to get something that we really wanted, we panic bought this white Vauxhall Mariva. Now, I'm not against them particularly, but they just weren't right for us. And I just said to Phil, like, with all respect, this is like an old person's car. We're in our 30s. Why are we driving this? I really know that it's a good car. It's economical. It's got great boot space. But I just don't love driving it. It doesn't bring me joy. And so then we sold it, and then I got another Mini. But I just wish that we hadn't panic bought that car. I wish that we just waited a bit longer and thought sensibly and looked at our finances to think, can we afford to stretch a little bit more now rather than having to buy this car, tax it, insure it?
Gemma, just out of interest, what do you think is important with regard to teaching financial education in schools? What subjects in particular come to mind that you would want to see your daughter being talked about at school?
Well, my daughter's in primary school. And so I think things like how to save, birthday, pocket money, Christmas money, that kind of thing, types of accounts that they put it into, and explaining what interest is. Because I think if a child understood that if they've got £10, but they put it into a bank account, in 6 months' time, for doing nothing, they could have £11. That's more stuff that you can buy. So I think it's putting it in a way that reframes it so that children understand the benefits of it, rather than just chucking words at them like, oh, you have to invest it in a high interest account. What does that even mean to a 9-year-old? Like, that is just, again, foreign language to them. So it's talking about it in ways that they can understand. And it's also then maybe challenging them to do that. And wouldn't it be great if every school could give each child £1 and say, go on, go and invest this? And I think sometimes they do things like mini enterprise projects at school where they do get given £5 or £10 and they get told to go and create a business and make money. So they do learn about it that way. But I don't think they do it until later on in primary school. But still, I think something like that is a great thing to do. But then when it comes to secondary school, we need to be taught things like how to budget, what kind of taxes we need to pay, how to apply for a mortgage, or even just how to apply for a bank account and what the different bank accounts are. Like, what's the difference between a flex account and an ISA and a high interest something else? Like, I know them myself. So how is a young person going to know what these things are and know how to, again, manage their money? I think it'd be really helpful, especially for people like me that are self-employed, to learn to do your tax return, like what it is that you are expected to hand over to the government in terms of HMRC when you've worked for a year, how to budget to pay for those taxes, and then things like charitable giving. And us as a faith family, we tithe, so we give parts of our money that we earn every month to a church or a worthy cause, a charity. And I think that is also really good to help you to realize that all your money doesn't have to be for you. It can be to better the bigger community around you or the wider community around the world. And so supporting other people and to not being so introspective and looking out and supporting other people. And I think there's real power in that as well. And so looking at charitable things, but then, like you say, it doesn't really have to be about money. And yes, I know we're talking about financial investments and financial futures here right now, but does it always have to be like the hard-earned cash? Can it be looking at time? Something like that. Can we transfer the same skills we learn to look after money into other aspects of our lives that perhaps we are more affluent in if we don't have the cash to spare?
So I want to give you a top tip on this podcast. And my top tip this podcast is about subscriptions. Are you paying a subscription that you've forgotten about, or maybe you're overpaying for a subscription? So why not right now have a look into your bank account, have a look at what you're paying on subscriptions, or maybe a streaming service or a music streaming service, TV, etc., etc. Have a look at what you're spending and is it really necessary? Could you save some money by reducing your subscriptions? I hope that helps. Thank you so much for listening. I'd be super grateful if you could subscribe, like the podcast, whether you're listening or watching. And just remember, no matter where you're starting from, a better financial future is possible. When we stop only working for money and we start learning how money can work for us, everything begins to shift. And I say that from my own experiences and the experiences of many people that I've been able to show a better financial future.